I have to tell you that of all retail, I've spent more time in Forever 21 than any other store as the father of a 21-year-old girl and all of her friends with a credit card. So thanks to Armando for having a men's section as well. Let's go just down the line real quick, just a quick introduction, and then maybe one of the things what keeps you up at night right now as we're coming out of the pandemic and back into something normal.
Lance Dobson, 1-800-CONTACTS. Frankly, with Armando going through what he was going through, it's that question that I asked is how to, I mean, especially when you think about contact lenses, it's not a sexy thing to sell, even when it's October and people want colored contact lenses and to look like Ciceron. But how do you figure out who the contact lens buyer is and how to get in front of them?
All right. Seth, Nenaber. I'm with TaylorMade Golf. What keeps me up at night is probably supply chain issues and also motivating associates, because we're an OEM and we're reliant on our retailers to sell our products. So keeping them motivated and our product top of mind for them.
Dan Williams, Chief Revenue Officer of 3-Day Blinds. Unlike contacts, window treatments are sexy.
So sexy. That should be your tagline.
Yeah, I think we just created it. You know, honestly, because we are in the home improvement business, we have really benefited from the work from home movement. So what keeps me up at night is hiring. We're hiring. Can't hire fast enough. So.
Interesting. So, you know, one of the things that we're all sort of realizing over the past 2 years is that consumer behaviors have just completely changed. You know, I think about from the standpoint of you've got grandmothers, you know, 90-year-olds scanning QR codes to get a menu. You know, I mean, this was not something that happened prior to the pandemic at all. Actually, QR codes we all thought were dead. It's like the great renaissance of the QR code. We're having an entire Media Post conference just on that, I think. But it's like, it's fascinating to me. So there's like new consumer behaviors. As we come back and like reopen from a retail environment, there's a totally different sort of integration in consumer behavior between people who may not have been tech savvy, who are now going to take this technology into a retail environment that maybe didn't exist before. Are there any sorts of things that you're thinking about that you're having to adjust or maybe even educate the C-suite a little bit? Like, hey, we can't just like go back to the way it was. There are some things that are fundamentally different now. So integration between, you know, the technology side and personalization and all of this. Are you having those discussions, and how are you trying to learn about how the consumer's changed? Or are you seeing it in different ways?
I mean, I could jump in on this one. At least from a golf perspective, there's been a pretty dramatic change over the last, I'll call it 10 years, that you once just grabbed the driver off the rack and you just assumed it was, you know, the one for you. So customization and the idea of getting it fit for you was started really slow, and it really has gained a lot of steam. And so these retailers have had to put a lot of work and money into that product because people want to have it fit for them, because they don't want to pay money for lessons. We just want to fit to their golf swing. And then we've taken it even a step further is, you know, now let's make it the colors they want to match their teams and the grips and all those kind of things. So that technology has kind of had to, you know, catch up to that desire to personalize anything and everything for that customer.
Will I be a top 10 player if I do this?
Well, you'll look like a top 10 player.
That's all that matters. That's right.
It feels sort of like the conversation pre and post, like Shopify, sort of, right? Because before Shopify, and even before like BigCommerce and some of those platforms, you had to know JavaScript and you had to know HTML to go build a website. But now there are services to help kind of manage this, and now it's apps and it's things like that. And so there are providers that will help kind of any company get up to speed in that way, whether you're small or big. And so like at 1-800-CONTACTS, you know, a few years ago it would have been, you know, how do we make it more accessible for people to get get a prescription for contact lenses, and that would have involved how do we educate people, how to go talk to your optometrist, things like that. And now it's how do we teach people how to use our app to renew your prescription, kind of thing. And so we're having that. We're trying to enable optometrists to use some of our tech. Incidentally enough, we have a new brand that's giving them a suite of tools to help them do that. And I think that in a lot of ways, it's almost more of an education for ourselves in what tooling is there out there, similar to the pre-post Shopify that we can utilize to get up to speed to that quicker. So.
I asked you, I think in our prep call, I was saying that if I want to get the Marilyn Manson look, which clearly I have good starts on right now, you have to have, like, to get that eye, you got to, like, get a prescription for that. You can't just, like, pop stuff in your eye.
I mean, you can. I just don't recommend that.
Okay. We're on the record.
Okay.
Yeah, right. In your case, I mean, you've got to have all these home improvement projects.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of technology involved, whether it's mobile technology or otherwise. I mean, they're coming into or having appointments, I'm sure, maybe armed more than they were before, or more comfortable with the different tools.
I mean, for sure. Now we have an app for your motorized window treatments, and our design consultants are employees. We don't have franchises or contractors or anything of that nature. So, they're trained to discuss technology with customers, and that's an interesting conversation for someone who's sold window treatments for 20 years and is maybe, and one of the things that we do when we hire design consultants is test them on technology, because they have to interface with technology when they're with the customer. So it's very interesting, and I'm starting to love QR codes.
Yeah, the Renaissance is great. Let's talk a little bit about just sort of like there's base level personalization. Like, I feel like we've talked about personalization for decades, right? And yet there's some sort of, like, you get to that path where you start doing personalization, and then you run into this point where it's like, there's no way we can function without some technology assist, whether it's through AI or automation for creative iterations, because all of a sudden you need 1,000 iterations of something. I mean, how have you guys found, or even pursue sort of that happy medium? So, because we're not all going to be Amazon, right? We can't get to that level necessarily without major commitment. But like, and even like selling personalization internally as having that ROI, what kind of cases are you having to make? And do you find that it's that there's a restriction that you sort of hit this point where it's going to require $1 million investment to get us to the next level? Or have you found just that, like, that sweet spot where you can sort of manage it without having to go over the top? I didn't mean to do a stumper.
I think that I think the trick, or not the trick, but it seems like the challenge is, in some ways, it's the needle in the haystack to begin with, because like Armando talked about, this is why I wanted to ask this question to him as he was talking about his different audiences. But it seems like there is how do you aggregate, or how do you understand what the inputs ought to be, and how big is that going to be? And on some level, there's the data side of that, where it's just we're going to look at all of our CRM data, all of our analytics data, and basically have rows be all the points, and then all of the columns, so to speak. And how do you go find this little bubble and this little bubble within all that to say those are useful or not? There's obviously tooling around that, and I think that you probably have to start small and hope that you hit some of those on that level. But then also it's like you have to do the footwork and get out to the parties where all the cool contact lens parties are being held, and see how you can find out, like, who these people are that are using this. Is it athletes who are wearing contact lenses? Is it people who want to go skiing who don't want to wear glasses? Is it people who are just tired of having their kids pull their glasses off their face, kind of thing, right? And it's trying to understand small data. Maybe not first, but at least having that be one of your starting points. And then if you can make enough cases for it, and you can show in your demographic data, we are missing these somehow, then it's like, that appears to be our opportunity cost, and we can perhaps do without that, but there's probably even more behind the curtains that we're missing there. That seems like that's the path toward going from not to getting some semblance of having it.
Well, and all of you, and I'm going to put a little caveat on the earlier question. I mean, all of you, to a certain extent, in order to do true personalization, it's going to affect your manufacturing, right? So it's not just like, oh, let's take CRM data and mash it up with this thing and develop. You can do it on the customer experience side, but at the product level, it's a total retooling of, like when you're saying, it's like, it's not just you're going to make a red TaylorMade driver. It's like somebody had to figure out how to make add red into the process.
Yeah, and Lance talked about this. It's a bit of trial and error. And when we started in personalization, we started in maybe the products that had less options that you could try with in our putter line and our wedge line. And we've now extended into our drivers. It's because we saw how much success was there. But it's still like, how many face colors should you offer? Like, is 7 too many or too few? And it's going to affect manufacturing and shipping timelines and all those kind of things, because these things are made overseas and then have to get here. So no one wants to wait 2 weeks for something that you ordered because you're so excited to get it and use it. So it's a bit of trial and error, and technology has helped us allow us to personalize it, but you're still restricted by the number of options you offer and how long it takes to get to them.
So I kind of on this path with my previous question to Armando. So obviously you guys work with a lot of professionals, and so there's a feedback loop there very specifically. What about with Joe Schmo golfer? Like, do you spend time having those conversations as much? Like, what are those conversations?
Yeah, we do focus groups and do color studies and all that kind of fun stuff. But there are the main colors and team affinities that we can kind of lean into, that we can kind of take as a baseline. We don't want to offer too many, because then it becomes a manufacturing issue. Sort
of pedantic to that question is like, is it purely just focus groups, or are there other input methods on that?
You know what? I don't know that level of detail, but I know we have implemented a lot of those pieces to get that feedback, and actually we use our instincts too. And we don't want to go too deep to make it, too wide that we can't even produce something. And it's a color that's so unique that so few are going to actually order.
I'm actually kind of interested in the same question. I don't mean to take over, but I'm really.
This is a non-paid thing, so I'm fine.
I'm sorry.
So for us, to kind of answer both questions, the personalization tools and technology that have existed for a while and kind of started to become more popular, we've tested a lot of them. We didn't really measure any significant lift in any of them. And I don't know that that's necessarily a statement about the technology itself. It could be just our product, because the realization that I came to is we are a personalization company. We literally come into your bedroom and you stand on your bed and measure your window.
And really weird, you guys actually just stay there too.
Yeah, and we go through the fridge and make ourselves at home. So, and we make custom products. So in terms of manufacturing, everything we make is custom to that window, and the one-on-one communication we have with the customer in their home is personalization, and that's going to be the next step for us, is to really take that to the next level and not just leave it there, but find ways that we can engage with the customer that makes the most sense.
Is what all of you are talking about, is this a new thing? I mean, like the idea that you literally have to have marketing conversations with manufacturing to talk about how we increasingly make custom products. And is the customization of product, a byproduct, or maybe the result of the increasing need for relevancy to people? Like if they all had the TaylorMade with the white cover, well, all of a sudden that's just not good enough anymore, right? We've got to move to something else. So how do you make a business case to an expensive process like manufacturing to retool something to everything else? How are you sharing internally that we need to make this investment in order to gain market share?
My one is to stay above the curve and be a leader.
I was going to say the same thing.
you have to take chances and spend money against something that you think will do and get good reception against. So to be a leader, you have to take chances, and sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. So,
And I mean, I think there are obvious market indicators of that people, especially in upcoming generations, want the personalization, and it's kind of you can test into not doing that if you want, but that seems more expensive than testing into it, right? And that seems to be how the conversations go.
In terms of personalization, when you think, a contact lens was an alternative to glasses, right, at one point.
Yeah.
Right? And now it's there is a fashion element to contacts.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit, too, just about that, whether it's colored lenses, cat eyes, the Marilyn Manson look. I mean, by the way, Armando was right, the 90s were awesome, so and more awesome than anything else. But I'm just curious, like, when did that, whether it's more enhanced eye color and all of this, but like, do you have a roadmap that how far does this go?
There are a few different ways to slice this. So on the one hand, for a while there, contact lenses allowed you to not look like the proverbial nerdy kid, right? And then there was kind of a let's say a rebellion against that, and it's like I love the nerdy look, right? Kind of thing. And
thank God.
And yeah, and so there was that dichotomy, that dynamic. But there is also now the how can I customize my contact lenses, and there are a number of players in the space that are trying to do this. We're trying to be better about this, and there really is a how can you, if you have a certain style and you like certain colors. My daughter loves the mint green better than any color, and how do you take, it really is almost biohacking in some ways. It's like how do you make how you naturally look to be something completely different, right? And so there is that aspect, and we're trying to create better experiences around that so that it can be more of an aesthetic and be a sexy thing that you can market instead of just here is how you can make it so your kids don't yank your glasses off your face kind of thing.
And are you seeing like when you're testing, when your product people are testing anything, are they able to then see, well, what's that going to look like on Instagram? You know what I'm saying? Like, do they test like from a photography standpoint? Because brand now is like so experienced through the social feeds, like how you present yourself. You know what I mean? From a fashion perspective, do you have to like think about that?
Yes, but we haven't done it as much as I'd like. So, but I think it's the right question. So I think that in some ways, if I were to take that question and expand it a little bit bigger, is that how do we do a better job of telling the story of how contact lenses can be enhancing, and even our app, right? Like that's sort of parallel path with it. How can you tell somebody? I mean, I've told the story to a number of people, and the last time I was speaking here, but. I have a story of my sister who's known that I've worked here for 2.5 years, and she's worn contact lenses for 30 years. And she, at Thanksgiving, I was driving with her to my folks' house, and she needed contact lenses soon. She was about to run out. And she's like, and she lives 45 minutes. She lives in the boonies of Idaho and needed to drive to the optometrist to get there and was like, I've got to set an appointment. I'm going to be basically blind as a bat for 2 days. And I was like, why? And she was like, what do you mean why? And we had this whole thing. It's like, how did we not know this? How did we not have this conversation? And all of a sudden she downloaded our app, and within 2 days she had contact lenses again, and it's testing into the story of how this can fit into your life in a way that enhances, as opposed to just, where does this white box on this ad sit better at the top or the bottom kind of thing, right? It should be viewed more narrative style than it should be, multivariate constituent style. Although there is a place for that, I think that the narrative has to be more important.
I have one last question that I think before we get to questions, and I have to ask it because it's about the fucking metaverse. And I've been here for 2 days, and I don't think I've heard it yet, so we're obligated. You already operate in one. You do, because these simulators
we talked about
becoming
this
more and more amazing. And like, is it on your roadmap? You've got it coming your way because of all these ways of people being able to sort of like visualize what a new home might look like and how could I drop the blinds. And I mean, so like, and then we're all in the metaverse because we've been living in Zoom for 2 years, and that's only going to get less two-dimensional, right? So and I don't know what you're going to do, but it's going to be cool. I don't know what it is, but so I'm just curious, like, is it coming up? Is it coming up in the conversation?
It is. I mean, my avatar is still asleep, by the way, in case anyone was wondering. But the augmented reality piece of it, we kind of struggle with because we want, our value proposition is helping customers kind of make the choices on, window fashions, and there's a lot of different possibilities. So giving that power to the customer to kind of upload images of their house and put in different window treatments and stuff, we don't necessarily want them to do that. We want to help them through that. So we may, equip our salespeople with the technology, but it's coming, and we need to embrace it. Like, we can't fight it, and it's, and the whole creating a virtual, designing your home and with all the different, components of it, and then buying them, that's around the corner. So, we're very much, investigating all the possibilities there, but, I think we just need to be in front of it and not, be caught, wondering why everyone else has it and we don't.
Yeah, so according to golf, in golf, simulators are a real thing. We are not kind of a part of that world, but we are partnerships within it. So yeah, hitting balls into a simulator, although it doesn't feel like real golf, there's a lot of tools, and that we talk about that custom kind of fitting component has to happen with all that data. That's how we analyze spin rates and launch conditions and all that kind of stuff. So it's a valuable tool to create that product for them. It's an interesting space. Topgolf, another one. Kudos to them and what they've done and created an entertainment, place that you can play against competitors across the world all at the same time. So more to come. We'll see kind of where it takes us. And, NFTs, who knows? Golf, usually we kind of wait and watch the rest of the world, see what they do with it. But we've been talking about it, so who knows what will come of those things.
I'll throw in a couple. So we sell glasses also, lingoeyewear.com, lingo with 2 eyes, because 2 eyes. And we have a virtual try-on, and this is probably more adjacent to fashion, where it's going to be like, I'd like to try on this shirt without having to try on this shirt. And so you can go on, it'll take a small video of you moving your head back and forth, and then whatever pair of glasses you want to see, it will overlay them onto your head with you moving like this. You can see if you like those glasses or sunglasses. And so I think that fashion industry is probably going to be a lot of that. And then contact lenses, there's lots of rumblings about, augmented reality built into your contact lenses. That's like microchip level shit that, it's, I don't know.
It's already in our body. The vaccine put it there, so. Sorry, I'm just stating facts. Anyway.
Do we have any questions? And actually, I'm going to probably try to cut it short in the sense we are running behind, and just make sure you're in the roundtables and you can follow up with questions there as well. I think that will be the best. Oh, but we do have one? All right, I'll squeeze you in.
This question is for Seth. I'm James Hoyle with Message Gears. I know most of your products are sold by other retailers, and you mentioned like the fittings. I've done a few fittings myself. How are you capturing that? How are you working with those retailers like the PGA Store and Golfsmith and even Amazon to understand who your customers really are, since they don't come directly to you for most of their products?
Yeah, so they get to keep that data if they do it at that store. But we also have an app called My Fitting EXP that allows us to capture, and we also do 10,000 fittings at private golf courses and public golf courses that we create this database of all this information. So we do capture all that data internally at our kind of days, but if you go to a Dick's Sporting Goods or a Golf Galaxy or a PGA, that is their own data. But we help, fill the void of like when we get all this data, what comes out of it. what kind of driver should be using, what kind of shaft should be using. Honestly, the shaft industry is, we only have 3 different heads. There are 500 different shaft variations. If you're a mid-flight, low-flight, high, I mean, it's tips, stiffness, like you go to the ends of all the variation of that is a variable that we actually don't have to work with. We just kind of give them suggestions of like how much do you want to spend and kind of your ball flight variations. So very complex, but yeah, to answer your question, really they own that data, but we provide them the information to kind of best solve, because we want them to be selling the product, because we are at first an OEM. We do have a DTC channel that has kind of emerged over the last 5 years, but 80-something plus % of our business is still OEM, sold at retailers, sold at green grass shops around the country and around the world.
Okay, well, thank you guys so much. You guys, great panel.
Thank you.
And everyone, so Dan, Seth, Lance, and Andrew.